Hi everyone and welcome back to Mirror Mind, the place where we see clearly, feel deeply, and begin to heal. Today's topic is intense, important, and something many of you have likely witnessed firsthand: narcissistic rage, the explosive defense. This is not just about someone getting angry. This is about the kind of rage that feels like a sudden storm, unpredictable, overwhelming, and deeply personal. If you've ever found yourself walking on eggshells around someone, if you've ever been caught off guard by an outburst that felt completely out of proportion, if you've ever felt like the price of disagreeing or disappointing someone was emotional war, you've likely encountered narcissistic rage. In today's video, we're going to explore what narcissistic rage really is, why it happens, how it affects victims, and most importantly, how to protect yourself from it. Let's begin. Chapter 1. What is narcissistic rage? First, let's get clear on what we're talking about. Narcissistic rage is an intense, disproportionate reaction to a perceived threat to a narcissist's ego or self-image. It's not regular anger. It's more like a defense mechanism gone nuclear. Imagine touching a nerve so sensitive that the person in front of you instantly explodes, not because you did something terrible, but because you unknowingly triggered their deepest insecurity. That's narcissistic rage. It can look like screaming, shouting, name-calling, passive-aggressive coldness, silent treatment that lasts for days, gaslighting and character attacks, emotional withdrawal, or even sabotage. Sometimes it's loud and dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet and punishing. But it always carries the same energy. How dare you threaten me? Chapter 2. The fragile ego beneath the rage. Here's the thing many people don't realize: narcissists are not emotionally strong. Despite their arrogance, confidence, or charm, narcissists are often walking around with extremely fragile egos. Their self-worth is built on shaky ground, full of insecurity, shame, and unresolved wounds. So what happens when their ego is challenged? They fall apart, but instead of collapsing inwardly, they explode outwardly. This is why even minor things like being disagreed with, criticized, or ignored can trigger narcissistic rage. Their brain doesn't interpret it as a small issue. It interprets it as an existential threat. So what might feel like a casual conversation to you could feel like emotional warfare to them. Chapter 3. What triggers narcissistic rage? Let's talk about what sets it off. Here are some common triggers for narcissistic rage. Criticism, even constructive feedback. Anything that suggests they're not perfect can cause a narcissist to spiral. Being ignored or rejected. They thrive on attention. So if you stop giving it, or worse, give it to someone else, they see that as betrayal. Being exposed. If their lies, manipulation, or double life is brought to light, expect a volcanic reaction. Loss of control. Narcissists need to feel in charge. If you set a boundary, make an independent decision, or take back your power, they may erupt. Not being admired. They crave validation like oxygen. If you stop admiring them or challenge their version of reality, they feel deeply threatened. Remember, to you, these things may seem normal or healthy. But to a narcissist, they feel like personal attacks, and the reaction is often explosive. Chapter 4. Forms of narcissistic rage. Now let's talk about the different forms narcissistic rage can take. Not every narcissist flips tables or screams. Some rage in silence. Here are the two main types. 1. Overt narcissistic rage. This is the type most people recognize. It's loud, dramatic, and sometimes even violent. Examples: yelling, swearing, physical aggression, public meltdowns or humiliation, threats, ultimatums, and verbal abuse. It's like standing too close to a firework. You don't know when it'll explode, but when it does, it scorches everything nearby. 2. Covert narcissistic rage. This one is more subtle but just as damaging. Examples: giving you the silent treatment, withholding affection, approval, or support, sabotaging your work, relationships, or confidence behind your back, passive-aggressive comments meant to hurt or confuse. With covert rage, the goal is the same: punish you for making them feel exposed, small, or not in control. Chapter 5. The narcissist's inner world during rage. Let's step into the narcissist's internal experience during one of these rages. What's really going on inside them? At their core, narcissists often carry deep shame and self-loathing. But they can't tolerate those feelings. So they project them onto others. If they feel inadequate, they'll accuse you of being incompetent. If they feel rejected, they'll reject you harder. If they feel exposed, they'll do whatever it takes to make you feel small. Rage becomes a defense and armor. It allows them to avoid vulnerability. They don't reflect or apologize. They attack. This is why reasoning with a narcissist mid-rage is useless. You're not dealing with logic. You're dealing with raw, unprocessed emotional panic masquerading as dominance. Chapter 6. How it affects you. Let's pause for a moment and focus on you, the person on the receiving end. Being exposed to narcissistic rage repeatedly can leave deep emotional wounds. Survivors often report constant anxiety and hypervigilance, fear of speaking up or setting boundaries, feeling like they're walking on eggshells, loss of self-esteem and confidence, guilt, shame, and emotional confusion. This isn't just a bad argument. It's a repeated pattern of psychological damage. Over time, it can lead to PTSD, depression, and trauma responses. The worst part? Narcissists often blame you for their rage. You made me do it. You're too sensitive. If you hadn't said that, I wouldn't have reacted like this. They flip the script and you start questioning your own reality. Chapter 7. Rage versus accountability. Not all anger is toxic. Anger can be healthy when it's expressed with boundaries and accountability. But narcissistic rage lacks both. A healthy person might say, "I felt hurt when that happened. Can we talk about it?" A narcissist says, "You humiliated me. You'll pay for this." That's the difference. Healthy anger leads to communication. Narcissistic rage leads to punishment. Chapter 8. The abuse cycle, where rage fits in. Let's now place narcissistic rage within the broader cycle of narcissistic abuse. If you've ever been in a toxic relationship, this cycle will feel eerily familiar. Idealization. In the beginning, you're perfect. They admire you, flatter you, make you feel special. This is the honeymoon phase, full of love bombing. Devaluation. Then, slowly or suddenly, they begin to criticize you. You're no longer amazing, now you're flawed, annoying, or not enough. Discard. When they no longer find you useful or when you start standing up for yourself, they may abandon you emotionally, mentally, or physically. Hoovering. Just when you think it's over, they try to suck you back in with apologies, guilt trips, or grand gestures. Now, where does rage fit in? Rage is often used in the devaluation and discard phases. It becomes the narcissist's weapon to reassert control, make you question your worth, punish you for not meeting their emotional needs. Rage maintains the imbalance of power, ensuring you're always on the defensive, too scared or confused to push back. Chapter 9. Narcissistic rage in romantic relationships. Romantic relationships are often where narcissistic rage is most destructive because they're intimate, emotional, and vulnerable. A narcissistic partner might explode when you challenge them, accuse you of cheating without reason, blow up over small delays or missed calls, use rage to shut down conversations they don't want to have. Over time, this creates a dynamic where you learn to silence yourself to avoid setting them off. You stop expressing your needs. You avoid disagreements. You shrink yourself to stay safe. And they get what they want. Complete emotional control. Chapter 10. Rage in parenting and family dynamics. Narcissistic rage is especially damaging when it comes from a parent. As a child, your brain is still developing. You don't have the tools to defend yourself or make sense of what's happening. If a narcissistic parent explodes when you express sadness, make a mistake, ask for space or independence, you start to internalize the belief that your feelings are dangerous. Many adult children of narcissists grow up with fear of expressing themselves, chronic guilt or shame, people-pleasing tendencies, trouble identifying healthy anger. You may feel like you're still stuck in that childhood dynamic even as an adult. And that's not your fault. That's trauma. Chapter 11. Why victims often blame themselves. One of the most heartbreaking effects of narcissistic rage is this: the victim often ends up blaming themselves. Here's why. Gaslighting. Narcissists distort the truth so often you begin to doubt your memory or feelings. Shame. Rage can be so intense that you feel like you must have done something terrible to deserve it. Trauma bonding. The push-pull dynamic, rage followed by affection, creates emotional confusion. Social pressure. People outside the relationship may not see the rage and might think you're overreacting. You may think, maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I shouldn't have brought that up. I need to be more careful next time. No. Let's be clear. You are not responsible for someone else's inability to regulate their emotions. Chapter 12. Rage as a control tactic. Narcissists don't just rage because they lose control. They often rage to maintain control. Think about it. If someone screams at you every time you bring up a concern, what do you learn? To stay silent. If someone punishes you emotionally whenever you express a boundary, what do you learn? To stop setting boundaries. This is how rage becomes a training tool. Over time, you're conditioned to avoid conflict. Keep them happy. Focus all your energy on not setting them off. It's emotional domination and it's intentional. Chapter 13, Narcissistic Rage at Work and in Friendships. This isn't just limited to romantic or family relationships. In workplaces, narcissistic colleagues or bosses may blow up during meetings, berate subordinates for minor errors, use passive-aggressive rage to manipulate teams. In friendships, narcissists might get furious if you spend time with others, guilt-trip you for not always agreeing with them, cut you off or smear you if you challenge them. Rage becomes a way to control social groups and workplace dynamics and to ensure they remain the center of attention and power. Chapter 14, How Rage Can Be Used to Isolate You. Another frightening tactic narcissists use is rage to isolate you from your support systems. They might explode when you spend time with friends or family, accuse others of turning you against them, say things like "no one else understands us like I do," then explode when you seek outside perspectives. Over time, you start hiding things. You stop reaching out for help. And slowly, you become emotionally dependent on the narcissist. And that's exactly what they want. Chapter 15, Post-Rage Behavior, the Aftermath. So what happens after a narcissistic rage episode? It depends on the narcissist's style. Some will pretend nothing happened, act like you're the one with the problem, demand you apologize. Others might engage in love bombing, suddenly become kind or romantic again, shower you with gifts or compliments, make dramatic gestures to win you back. This confuses you and keeps you stuck. It creates cognitive dissonance, the uncomfortable feeling of holding two contradictory truths. This person just hurt me, but now they're being so sweet. And so, the cycle continues. Chapter 16, Recognizing Narcissistic Rage in Real Time. One of the most empowering things you can do is recognize narcissistic rage in the moment instead of blaming yourself afterward. So how do you know it's narcissistic rage and not just someone having a bad day? Here are the signs. It's disproportionate to the situation. Minor triggers lead to massive reactions. It feels performative, like they're raging at you rather than expressing genuine emotion with you. It comes with punishment, silent treatment, withholding affection, smearing, ghosting. There's no true repair, no accountability, no ownership, no growth. It shifts the blame to you. You're always the cause of their anger in their eyes. When you start noticing this pattern, rage used to destabilize, shame, or silence you, you can start detaching emotionally even if you're still physically in the situation. That internal shift is where healing begins. Chapter 17, Gray Rocking and Boundaries. So what do you do when you're dealing with narcissistic rage? First, don't try to reason with it. You cannot argue someone out of a defense mechanism that protects their fragile ego. Instead, consider using the gray rock method. Be dull, non-reactive, and emotionally neutral. Don't feed their rage with big reactions. Keep your responses calm, brief, and boring. The idea is to remove the fuel they want, your emotional engagement. Alongside gray rocking, set and hold boundaries like, I will not engage when you yell at me. I'll walk away if you raise your voice. This conversation will continue only when it's respectful. Boundaries are not about changing the narcissist, they're about protecting your peace. Chapter 18, Safety First, When Rage Becomes Dangerous. Let's be clear, some narcissistic rage crosses the line from emotional abuse into physical danger. If you ever feel threatened, manipulated, stalked, or trapped, prioritize your physical safety. Document everything. Seek support from trusted friends, therapists, or domestic abuse organizations. Abuse escalates over time. Rage that begins with screaming can end in violence. If you need to leave, you're not weak, you're brave. Don't wait for it to get bad enough. If you're scared, that's enough. Chapter 19, Inner Work, Deprogramming the Guilt. One of the deepest wounds left by narcissistic rage is internalized guilt. You may feel like you provoked it, like you failed them, like your emotions are too much, like you're broken or too sensitive. This guilt keeps you tethered to toxic patterns even long after the narcissist is gone. So how do you deprogram it? Start by affirming, I'm allowed to have needs. Anger does not mean danger. I am not responsible for someone else's emotional regulation. Working with a trauma-informed therapist can help you unpack where your people-pleasing comes from, how childhood experiences shaped your tolerance for rage, why you may confuse intensity for love. Healing is messy, but it's possible. Chapter 20, Reclaiming Your Right to be Angry. Here's a radical truth, you are allowed to be angry. Many survivors of narcissistic rage become terrified of their own anger because all they've seen is how rage can be used to hurt others. But anger itself isn't toxic. Unprocessed, misdirected, manipulative rage is. Your anger, when healthy, can tell you, "This isn't right. I'm not okay with this. I need to protect myself." Reclaiming your anger means giving yourself permission to feel it without shame. Let it move through you without becoming it. Your rage doesn't have to look like theirs. Chapter 21. Thriving after the storm. Freedom from narcissistic rage isn't just about avoiding the narcissist. It's about creating a life where your nervous system feels safe again. This means rebuilding your self-worth, choosing relationships based on mutual respect, setting boundaries that are non-negotiable, relearning how to trust your instincts, surrounding yourself with emotionally safe people. It's not just about surviving, it's about thriving. You get to write a new story, one where you're not walking on eggshells, waiting for the next explosion. One where peace is your baseline, not the exception. Chapter 22. Final reflections. You deserve peace. To anyone who's lived through narcissistic rage, I see you. I know what it feels like to shrink, to flinch, to second-guess your every word. I know the exhaustion of living in emotional chaos, the confusion of being blamed for someone else's explosions, and the loneliness of being unseen. But here's the truth. You are not broken. You are not crazy. You are not weak. You were in a relationship with someone who couldn't handle their own emotions, so they made you responsible for them. But that stops here. You get to unlearn that conditioning. You get to set new standards. You get to breathe again, deeply, fully, freely. Thank you for spending this time with Mirror Mind, where we dive deep, tell the truth, and offer tools for real healing. If you've made it this far, that means you're seeking clarity, peace, and power. And you deserve all of that and more. Remember, rage is not love. Intensity is not intimacy. Fear is not the price of connection. Your healing matters. Your peace matters. You matter. Until next time, take care of your mind, your heart, and your boundaries. You're not alone. This is Mirror Mind, where healing becomes clarity.